Welcome to Newish, a video PD series on how to teach newcomer students in your classroom. They may be new to us, but they are not new to learning. Hola, me llamo Carlota. I'm an EL leader in Indianapolis, Indiana. I've been supporting teachers in their daily instruction of language learners for 10 years. I created Newish in 9 because I want to support teachers with our newcomer students. If you're like our school, you may be experiencing an influx of newcomer students. You may not have been prepared. This video PD series will strive to provide you with bite-sized weekly PD in 9 minutes to boost your achievement in the classroom and create a pathway to greatness for your students. See what I did there? I'll be referencing Carol Salva's Boosting Achievement and Michelle Izquierdo's Pathways to Greatness for EL newcomers in this video series. If you don't have these texts already, I highly recommend purchasing at least one of them to help guide your instruction. If anything, it'll be a nice resource to have when you need it. In today's episode, we'll discuss the difference between newcomer students and Cyphers Life students. We'll identify ways to build relationships when communication is challenging. And lastly, we'll explore how to build on our current culturally responsive practices. This quote comes from Carol Salva's Boosting Achievement text. When I was trying to come up with a name for this video PD series, I was very meticulous in my decision. This quote has stuck out to me and continues to stay with me throughout the years. They experienced a lack of opportunity, but not an inability to learn. I wanted a name that conveyed that this subgroup of English language learners may be challenging because they're new, but they are merely new to us, new to the US, new to English, but they are not new to learning. We all learn in our everyday life, whether we are in or out of school. Those life lessons we can leverage in our classroom. If you currently have a fixed mindset, this series will challenge you and hopefully transition you to a growth mindset. What's the difference between a newcomer student and a Cyphers Life student? A newcomer is a newly arrived immigrant English language learner who is in their first year of school in the US and are at the early stage of English proficiency. A Cyphers Life student is a student with interrupted formal education or a student with limited interrupted formal education. This means because of the state of their native countries, they were unable to attend school consistently. That could be because of poverty, war, natural disaster, political turmoil, or lack of transportation or resources. A student can be both a newcomer and a Cyphers Life student. We must remember that not all school systems work like our school system. School in America is required for children under the age of 16. We must keep an open mind of the culture and customs of our students' families and adjust our instructional approach. Migrant students who move from place to place for financial reasons can also be classified as SIFE. I also think of this comparison with native English students who are in the foster system. They also experience interrupted education when the system moves them from house to house and between districts. If you need assistance in identifying whether a student is Cyphers Life, I recommend using either Boosting Achievement or Pathways to Greatness that have a student intake assessment. We know that for any classroom, it is important to build relationships with students and families. Especially for newcomer and SIFE students, they need to feel valued and respected. You may be freaking out wondering how you're going to build relationships when you don't speak their language and communication can be challenging. Here are some helpful tips. Offer families information and other personal facts about yourself. Do team building, student surveys, or simple conversations to help learn more about your students' culture. And build relationships with the communities that support your students. This will send a strong message of respect to the students and their families. This tells them you're already trying to build that bridge between the school's culture and their own. Here are 2 apps to help when communicating with families. Talking Points is a text messaging app. It's free for up to 150 students. You can send messages to families and they choose what language they want to receive the message in. This gives you the opportunity to communicate behavior, explanation of classroom norms and expectations, request assistance with completion of work, celebrate accomplishments, suggest resources for home, request assistance from parents, and invite parents to share their knowledge or culture in your classroom. Say Hi is also an app on mobile devices. It allows you to have a conversation in 2 languages by speaking into the phone. The app then translates to the other language for the student you're speaking with. Some of the languages will convert into text as well. You can use it in real time in your classroom. Lastly, we must attain and build our culturally responsive practices. We can do that by encouraging the L1 or native language use. Studies show that if students are proficient, literate, academically successful in their first language, they will acquire a second language faster. You might be wondering, but what if they're Scythe? Great question. Even if they are Scythe, they need to be given opportunities to use their first language. Language is part of their culture. They still need that language to communicate with their parents and their community. Don't deny them that. Displaying and incorporating pictures, books, labels, and other information from different cultures and languages makes the learning environment more welcoming for students. Leverage assets. Because students come to the United States with unique experiences, sometimes enduring things we'd never imagine, these students come with grit, perseverance, resilience, and most likely from a culture that values community. Parents can be your greatest ally as they have worked so hard to give their children a better life and educated opportunity here in the US. Leverage these assets in your classroom. Encourage them to keep pushing through their academics. Be their biggest cheerleader. Funds of knowledge. A lot of times we'll hear, but they can't because they don't know English. Unfortunately, we hear this phrase not only for ELs, but especially for newcomers. They don't know English yet, but they have their own funds of knowledge. We already mentioned one earlier language, of course. All students, consciously and subconsciously, come to our classrooms with background knowledge from their unique experiences and circumstances. Newcomer students can be experts in areas that are virtually unknown from their American peers. Native English peers may lack the concepts of tyranny or civil unrest, but our newcomer students may be able to personally relate to it. Imagine the contributions they could make to your classroom discussions. Newcomer students may even come to your classroom with more proficiency in academics, like math or science, than their English speaking peers. Lastly, remember that your students may lack experience and knowledge of American culture and history, but accessing their prior knowledge and making connections will provide a foundation of information to begin their new learning. Using images like pictures and videos will help students build their background knowledge in any content area. Here is another example of one of my favorite quotes from Carol Salva's Boosting Achievement. Their situation, their hardships bring perspective. Newcomer students, Life students, immigrant students bring a perspective to your classroom that no other student may have. For that sole reason, I feel blessed to do this work, and I hope you'll learn to see its advantages too. Remember, language acquisition takes time. Give yourself some grace. You're doing great. I'm going to leave you with a weekly challenge. This challenge is meant to encourage you to continue developing your CQ or cultural intelligence by exploring diverse resources like books, articles, and movies. In order to increase your knowledge about other cultures, you must commit to reading or watching about them. This will enhance and increase your CQ. This week, I'm going to challenge you with 5. Here are a few of my favorite books. The New York Times has a wonderful world section full of articles by region. What region are your newcomers from? Find out and read up. Lastly, here are some of my favorite movies, but Netflix also has documentaries on the immigration experience. Perfect for a night of Netflix and chill. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, try to get your hands on these 2 books. You can reach me on Twitter at Carlota_Holder, or my emails have been provided. See you next week, and best of luck with this week's challenge.